I think it's quite a small room. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. I don't think I'm going to need the microphone, but if at any point you can't hear something, just like wave or something, I don't know. Hi, thank you all so much for coming. My name's Anushka, I'm the Equalities Officer at the Union, and I'm really excited to host this amazing panel today on technology targeting minority groups with speakers from a very wide range of backgrounds, who I'm not going to introduce, I'm going to leave them to do that far better themselves. And this panel is in collaboration with the SU's BME campaign, so a huge shout out to them for all their help on this. And without any further ado, I'm going to pass it on to the panelists to give us a brief introduction of them, their work, and their experience considering technology and how it's been used or can be used to target or suppress minority groups.
Oh, look, thank you for inviting me, Anushka, and to the Union. I'm Sam Shah. I'm the Chief Medical Strategy Officer at a men's health company called Newman, which you may have seen my loud adverts all over the place. I'm also Professor of Digital Health at Ulster University, College of Medicine and Dentistry, and Digital Health Research Lead at UCL Global Business School for Health. And aside from that, I also work in law with a law firm focusing on medico-legal aspects and also technology.
Thank you for organizing today's important panel, and good evening to the attendants. And my name is Aziz Isa Alkun. I am Uyghur ethnicity, and I've been living in London since 2001. I graduated from Birkbeck University with multimedia development. I've been working for many web sector data companies in Canary Wharf in London for a few years, and then I moved to research project to School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London, SOAS. So now I've been working there for more than 10 years, and mostly I collaborated with Professor Rachel Harris, mostly about expressive Uyghur culture, and including the usage of Uyghur internet, social media, and how the regime censor, also about Uyghur Islam, terrorism, and Uyghur cultural heritage. And finally, I'm also a poet. My last book published last year by the Everyman's Library, Penguin Random House, the title called The Uyghur Poems. You're welcome to read. So that's me.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Anushka. Thank you for having me. So I'm Kanta Dihal. I'm a lecturer at Imperial College London, where I run the Masters in Science Communication, and I'm affiliated here in Cambridge with the Centre for the Future of Intelligence. So my research is on how people communicate about artificial intelligence to people who aren't experts in the field, how people perceive what artificial intelligence is based on a mix of their personal experiences with the technology and the stories that they have been told their entire lives about this vague, nebulous thing called artificial intelligence. So I've done a series of projects around AI and race, public perceptions of AI, and the stories about AI in different countries in different parts of the world, and how AI is visually represented.
Great, thank you so much everyone for your introductions. So my first question is just quite a general one to kind of get the conversation started, but at any point jump in, steer away from my questions, completely up to you. So in your personal experience or in your research, how has or can technology be used to kind of suppress the experiences, the rights of minority groups?
Well, happy to start. So look, I think there's lots of great things about technology, but at the same time, it does have its challenges. If you think about it from a health or medtech perspective, we certainly saw this over the last few years with the advent of the pandemic. Lots of people who were either living in digital poverty or didn't have access or couldn't afford access effectively were closed out from health services. Now, we might not have seen so much of this in the UK, But there's certainly people in other parts of the world where only those people who could afford access and had the means to get online could access healthcare when they needed it most, especially during the COVID pandemic, when they were the most sick point and needed to access advice when they couldn't. And on the one side, you might say, well, that's a poverty issue. But on the other side, it could be a form of digital exclusion that might almost be deliberate.
We can make as an example how the China using the control the people and targeting, especially like targeting. Of course, yeah. Any individual who oppose or challenge the regime, they were easily picked up. Like China called Shenzhen, Chinese ID card. ID card has particular the chip in it, and the Uyghurs, especially they use for the Uyghurs. They check any Uyghurs. If they are suspect or grievous or prayed before or followed Islam or any kind of sentiment for Uyghur nationalism or against the regime, they mark it. The three different mark: dangerous, medium, and dangerous, medium, and the low risk. If anyone dangerous, they're not allowed even from the town to go to another town. Every town there's checkpoint and the machine there. They put the scan the Chinese ID card in that flash up, and that's what they use. And it's recent technology. And once I was in Istanbul, I was shocked how the Turkey used it. I was the Istanbul travel card on the tram bus you can use. And somehow I was not successfully registered during the COVID time, and I got a tram. I have a credit on my Istanbul card. I tried to swap, it didn't work, and then they did not allow me. And they said, "Why my card not is mine? You have to register this is the COVID-related app, the control." I'm a foreigner. You're talking Istanbul, try to use public transport. Yeah, absolutely. It's many sectors. Yeah.
And also to follow up on this issue of data being registered and being either passed on or sold, so much data about people is being used, and these kinds of annotations about a person's identity and where they are or aren't allowed to go are in all kinds of databases that we have very little knowledge of. You just mentioned just now, Sam, that when we were waiting outside, that you've also experienced being held at the border, no idea why, being interrogated. I noticed the noticeable difference in how often I got flagged getting into the UK, i.e. every time, until I got indefinite leave to remain. Now the automatic gate's open for me. And these kinds of decisions are often completely opaque and can really disadvantage certain people, either very deliberately or because they make inferences about people based on histories of what kinds of people are supposed to be filtered out of crowds.
And I don't know if you found this, but I certainly find it can be something as simple as a surname or a name, and that has got an inference about it or an association with a certain segment of society, and that can result in an entire cascade of events that are attached to that. Whether or not they're true almost doesn't matter, but the databases, the data, the way in which they're amassed, the way in which inferences are drawn from those things, sometimes we feel like they're entirely arbitrary, but they're not.
Yes, absolutely. In the US, so that the border checks, I know it's based on last names, but the problem is, in some societies, entire villages have the same last name, or people don't have last names because their society might not work that way, and they make them up, and that means that all kinds of weird inferences get made about this person happened to grow up in the same town as you and is a terrorist, and therefore you're flagged.
Yeah, it's yes. I'm not surprised how to of your experience. I'm also not the exception on with experience. Many times it happened to me personally. Last year I was with traveling to Turin in north of Italy, and I was stopped at the border check. Luckily I'm able to travel the automatic gate when I exit, and I'm a British, right? And they stopped me, said, you're on the arrest warrant list. What? Arrest warrant list? Okay, no, it can't be that you are making a mistake. And then, can you check, that immigration officer speak very little English, but another Italian girl helped me. And they checked, I waited for half an hour, and someone from France, exactly like my name, on terror list, and someone in France list, why you apply on me? And said, you have to carry when you travel to Schengen visa. The Italian police told me, nothing I have to do, I'm in London, nothing I have to do with, and I'm Uyghur, I'm from Central Asia, and that person from Africa, somewhere on Nigeria. What I say is obvious. Some of the government aggressively use indulge these technologies available, like China and many Western governments, even the Third World. This is, liberty is certainly at stake at the moment. There's no question about this. Yeah.
But it's interesting, you both make points about the way in which this data is used. And I was talking to someone recently about another example. We've all heard about what's happened in the US in relation to abortion. And in healthcare, there are a lot of apps that are used for period tracking and other things for female health. And a lot of my colleagues are working in this area. One of the challenges now is where does that data go? How does it get used? What happens when you combine the data from that app and other tags and cookies that are attached to it to people's behaviors? How does that get interpreted? And do governments around the world potentially misuse that against those women who are in a very vulnerable state? For me, certainly from a medtech, health tech perspective, I have a concern about that. Just listening to the stories, and especially the way you've been treated, thinking about where that data flows, where those cookies are emitting information about individuals, and how that's tracking them without their knowledge, getting into databases that they have no clue about.
And even when you think, oh, but I have nothing to hide, it might always be that the political situation where you are might change drastically, so that suddenly you will feel like you have something to hide because those fundamental freedoms of yours are at stake. As we've seen with the abortion debate in the US, it can just go flick of a switch and suddenly what you thought were very fundamental, deeply entrenched rights that you had are being undermined.
So I guess this kind of leads on to my next question. Do you think that, is there some kind of racist bias inherent in technology? So, for example, in AI or an algorithm, or is this something that is only dependent on what people bring to it, if that makes sense? So is there something kind of inherent that exists in the technology, or is this only dependent on the ways that it's applied by governments, by companies, etc.?
Let me go on this one. This is recently came up how the China used artificial technology tested on the Uyghurs, because Uyghurs are physically different from the Han majority in China. And this is very new debate at the moment, and there's not much in the academic field or scientific research became everyone's aware about it. But still, they started already. It's already there. And for example,
do you feel like this anthropological difference that exists, is it being built, is it almost finding its way into the technology that now exists in China? You find technology?
Yes. This is like what they did. I was reading the artificial intelligence and the DNA, high definition scanning the face, and surveillance technology. We know it is they put coding on the program and certain coding features on the coding, and anyone, for example, one Uyghur in Beijing or Shanghai walking, the description comes in that person's Uyghur. Even your foreigner, if the facial shape of your face, muscles, tissues, how big your eyeballs or ears, and how thick your eyelash, everything mathematically is coded programmed. That's we call the use for the racism is clearly there. China started already about since 2019, and I don't know clearly in the UK, but there's also in the police and the medical sector also, for example, police can use at the moment, and in the US as well, Bolton or in London or Brixton, you can see. I mean, this is, but we need to be more steady. But we know clearly about China. More detail already there comes up. This is the first time they're using the DNA, artificial technology, everything. Identify who are the Uyghurs, mostly used for the Uyghurs. This is first example, very obvious. The technology racially profiled and used for particular ethnic group, different than the other groups. Yeah, this is.
But here is AI technology clearly being used to further a project that has been going on for decades, centuries, right? Where all kinds of different technologies has been hauled in just as soon as they are invented in order to make it possible to more easily differentiate between different ethnic groups. And that goes back all the way to the 19th century when they started with this kind of definition of what a race is and how to scientifically describe it, how to categorize people in order to then make arguments about how this one category is better than the other. This one category is more intelligent than the other. And so to put all kinds of labels, you have to first define the boundaries of the label first. And it's that kind of thinking that then feeds into the way the technology is developed, who funds the development of the technology in a certain direction. So it's this constant interplay between the technology itself, what its intended use is, and what people are funding it to become its intended use. Because those technologies, of course, always then develop the quickest. But in terms of, is there a racial bias within technology itself? I think that is very difficult to make that claim because technology is never sort of separable from the humans who make it, and it is never possible to claim that this thing has just become racist by itself, or it is possible to make it completely free from racism. No, it will always have the biases that are fed into it by the people who create it. I mean, trying to remove biases has had some really useful and good effects in many technologies that were very obviously biased, and that has been toned down. But those who do that de-biasing then have their own biases that might still be in there that we won't recognise until society changes again and sheds a light once again on what those biases are.
I have to say that two things struck out from what you've just said. And the first thing is, though, going back to the sort of 19th century or 1900s example, is that racism has existed in society for time immemorial. It still will. It's one of those things that whether we like it or not will never go away. It will exist to a greater or lesser extent. In difficult times, we'll see more of it play out, and perhaps at easier times when economic things are more stable, we might see less of it. But it exists, and it's almost hardwired, hard-coded as the differences between right back to tribes and races and all the way into today's society. And if we think about the definition of race and then how people attach characteristics to race and then try to categorize the characteristics that attach themselves to race, that almost gave itself a natural leaning towards that sort of database style of curating characteristics and categorizing by race. And you can see that in today's world, well, that turns into spreadsheets and data and all these things. There's some clever people here who do some wonderful things with data that I know, but it is entirely possible that then plays its way through, all the way through to the data on which algorithms might be based, AI might be trained, and those, when we think about the way in which machine learning comes about and the principles of data science, it relies on that data. So whether we like it or not, the natural, whether it's natural or whether it's deliberate existence of racism in society is going to play itself out into the very data that is then used to build algorithms and that AI might be trained on. Now, we might not also obviously see it every day, but there are some places where we do see it more than others. And I certainly see this in medtech and life sciences, where a lot of the drugs that are very rapidly being developed and using the benefits of AI are developed from societies that are pretty much Western Caucasian, more so than being the majority of the world, which might be in Africa or the East, which are going to benefit most. But of course, the AI that's been used was never had that underlying population in it. That's one example. The other is the use of pulse oximetry. You might have seen that pulse oximeters suddenly became mainstay and everyone's got them. But of course, they're not designed for dark-coloured skin. They were designed on white Caucasian skin, so they penetrate a certain way. So they're more likely to misfire when they've been built on populations that are very different. So whether it's deliberate or otherwise, I almost do feel that racism, in whatever form, is built in to society and then built into algorithms and built into technology.
Yes, exactly. It's a bit of a depressing conclusion, I guess, but because humans have these inherent biases that I don't think we will ever get out of, that also means that the technology will never get out of that framing.
It's like yes, now we are facing now lots of uncertainty about future. The humanity's intellectual brain, how it develops with the artificial intelligence. Now, many of you probably know about the AI technology, software in many forms. But before that, what I want to put here, another area, which is called automatic speech recognition software, ASR. Why I'm interested in this was we are pretty primitive about communication in the recent years, as I say, because of course when I remember my own university time, we lived in a different planet, because every week we used to have an hour typewriting in 1990 in Urumqi in China, where I was studying at Xinjiang University. We were very curious about typewriting. We have only an hour per week. And then 1996, first time I heard about email. What's this strange? A Chinese called Dianxin. What's this? Crazy. And then I was in Kyrgyzstan in 1999. First time I contacted one of my friends in California. Great. And he replied me back. I used one of the other guy's email. Okay. I was in London. Okay, my determination. I must able to understand this technology. So I spent in London. Well, again, I'm not there. So what I'm saying, to compare with different level. Now we are talking about artificial intelligence. Now our internet, now social media, all the things. Now government is so frustrated about trying to understand. Again, the racism there. These states put millions, billions of pounds to understand about language. We all speak different languages. We have all different software we created on social media and internet. So they have to be able to automatically translate it. So that sector, the first artificial intelligence also comes from that. This was foundation, but it recognize all the language on the internet, the web space or social media. One simple case I said about Uyghurs. No one cares about Uyghurs because we are stateless people. We are now official now China. China occupied us. We are part of China now, more than 70 years. And China used all Uyghur vocabulary, dictionary, converted the program, machine recognized, started, and they completed the ASR program, automatic speech recognition. Now you can see any Uyghur video, everything, automatic, any Uyghur speak Uyghur, automatic comes up on the video clip, everything on social media, Chinese subtitle. But no one speak it, they widely using. And US feel like left out. So they spend lots of money. They completed last year. And they not share that program. And we are not able to share it. But we know, it comes up on the news. And they develop, US develop as well. Now in the last 3 years, we are raising money and get some fund. Now we completed almost like halfway. I myself contributed thousands of audio files to one of our friends now doing in Japan, able to Google, especially Google Translation and add the software to recognize Uyghur's voice. There's not government, this is kind of public. So this is like if you get English or Turkish, Italian or Punjabi or in major languages, you have no problem about that. When you become like stateless, we have more than 20 million population. We are stateless. We don't have state. No one cares about nations, anything, language, culture, everything. Why they created to survey these, control these people? No, nothing else. But in the other state, there's a different perspective.
So do you feel like there, in that example,
Yeah.
the technology is being used in a way that's inherently racist? Is it being...
Racist because they have a different agenda. If they are not racist, they are for the benefit of the mankind. Why they not allow the others, like other public able to access this software? No one. Why we are building ourselves? Because they're not allowed us. They are using for security, only for the sort of for security reasons.
And if they were to I don't know, open source the technology, what benefit would there be? What change would there be in terms of, would it change the dimension?
Of course, if you open source, that will be drastically change everything. You don't have to worry about it. You can understand what I write in Uyghur. As an individual, you can understand. Billions of people understand in the world. They will be very blocked. But US and China develop, they are not sharing it. Can I make one? This is about they're not interested in public benefit, they're interested about their own security, understand what's going on. They're all about surveillance, control people.
There are some really interesting projects going on, including in Africa, where the thousands of African languages, only one or two are being acknowledged by these companies that make this kind of technology, because only those are big enough to be profitable, essentially. And so there is a lot of grassroots, especially translation and speech recognition work and development going on. But yeah, you have to, with 3 people and 50 quid, try and do what either one of the world's biggest governments or the world's richest companies are doing professionally.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's an example where you could have big tech, some of which are bigger than many countries around the world, could effectively almost wipe out, erase their language simply by the way in which technology evolves. It almost deletes the existence of a language, a personality, a culture because of the type of tech that might be used, and especially in an environment where people are using more and more tech, and they're almost hardwired, trained to use certain tech in a certain way from early on. Culture, you can almost delete a whole set of cultures by pushing people in this way.
This is no question about that. This is my most worry for the future, for the next generation. Why? Especially you are not like a core language speaker. For example, in London, we have more than 2,000 language spoken in London, but English dominated more than 99%. In China, we will have more than 20 million. And look about again, by the border, the Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan is all Central Asia, right? Kazakhstan, for example, became now independent from the post-Soviet Union, for more than 30 years. Kyrgyzstan as well. I always travel these days. All young generation, little children until they're 30s old, they all speak medium communications Russian language. The Kazakh government will try to bring them to get back from the colonialism to their own culture, but they couldn't. Why? And why did now Uyghur children are now become like they grow up with a different culture? Why? And why we are addicted to TikTok or children's why? Why we cannot get away from the Twitter or Facebook or why? Because this is that app. This is also whitewash or to bring that the kind of very soft, gentle touch and change you because of the culture there, the language there. Any child, even Kazakh child, using the TikTok, even Russian app, automatically they can they love the Russian. Ignore it. Any Uyghur child using the WeChat, any child, for example, we underestimated this is kind of tech and how the society changes with the old created tech. So this is many issues now. Again, this fastness about globalization become like a particular about your one question. So one tech company can raise one smaller nation or race if they wanted. Why? Before the China started the Uyghur genocide, before 2017, there's Chinese app called Youku, which is a copy version of YouTube. All Uyghur historical culture area used to be, even my own account there. Since 2017, more than 4,000 Uyghur websites totally deleted, all content lost, and then all the media channels like Youku, YouTube, all gone. We could not retry, but we did. We invested many Uyghur intellectuals, mostly based in US and Japan. We retrieved many of half at least of the content from the website, from the Wayback Internet Wayback machine, web archive machine, which is run by the US. Retrieved, and this is we first time we experienced about this, how dangerous the big time can a nation, a state can eliminate one nation's. I mean, now we are now in the 20 or 30 years. We are living on the virtual life become very, very important for everyone. You're recording everything, video, audio, text, everything on there. If you probably you can delete it is finished.
It's an interesting aspect, isn't it, of our digital footprints and our digital lives. On the one side, it's very useful to have this. On the other side, you can see how risky it is when that power is abused in the way that you sort of described. I guess we were sort of touching on this earlier on in our pre-discussion.
Yeah, but also this makes me realise also how fragile it is.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we share all this data and we make all these videos and all these pictures all the time. We were taking pictures of each other, but at the same time, one decision by a company, a country, can wipe it all away. It can all be gone, and then because it was digital, there is no record of it. Perhaps it's in the Wayback Machine, but you just have to be lucky, and it can all completely vanish. And so that's so on the one hand that this active vanishing of a people, a culture, a language. Well, at the same time, of course, the use of the most influential apps and social media platforms also nudges people towards eliminating their own language and culture in favor of, using the language that the platform comes in, using the language that will get you the most views, giving the cultural content, doing the TikTok dances that will get you the most views, and so conforming to whatever this mysterious algorithm nudges you towards, as opposed to opportunities for individual expression that will get very few likes.
And that in itself, from a health perspective, we touched on this earlier, is itself interesting because people sort of get this dopamine hit from the number of likes they get, from the scrolling, even to the point where these tech organizations have worked out how long they leave people waiting to create that anticipation in that moment. All of those things build towards making people conform, act and behave in a certain way. On the one side, great, it can be enjoyable for some people. On the other side, it also creates a whole set of other problems that we probably won't get into today, but it just demonstrates the way in which tech might be going, and certain aspects of tech that are on the one side very helpful, on the other side can be quite damaging to health, to individuals, to society, to social cohesion.
I guess that kind of brings me to one of my last questions. I've got lots more, but I'm not going to take up all your time. I'm going to open it up to the floor afterwards. I guess my final question is, what is next for your own work, your advocacy, your research, and what can all of us do in our interactions with tech, and to kind of make sure that all voices are being included and no perspectives are being eroded away, etc.
Well, there's loads of things I'll probably talk about, but the most important thing that certainly in my work is around the privacy dimension of tech, and in particularly around sensitive and personal data. All of us have sensitive personal data about our health conditions, about ourselves, about the way we interact online. It gives away a lot about us as people. And I would say be very curious, ask questions, don't blindly sign up to things, because where is your data going? How is it being used? And how much does the other entity know about you? And what are they doing with that data? Who are they selling it to? And there are so many online healthcare providers out there today around the world who are using that data in a way that is not transparent, it is not clean, and it is not necessarily in your best interest. So I would certainly say to everyone, be curious, but be militant, and protect your data because it is yours and you only have it once.
My experience is very complicated on the digital virtual life. Early used to be internet and now social media, and then we are now fed up with social media as well because about time, very time consuming. And but what I'm still not giving up my interest is I closely observe how Chinese propagandists propagate using the Twitter, WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, Western free social media. On the other hand, they're not allowed their own citizens use any of the media, and I closely observe also about the Uyghur culture and cultural erosion by the Chinese state, and also I closely watch about imprisoned Uyghur writers, poets, and they retrieve their work from the access the web archive. So it's yes, again, it's a nightmare when a state try to the awful crime towards a particular group in their country. We were just what we have experienced. We are just devastated. Everything's torn up by the state, or trying to show to the world we was one of them, and we just happen to be Muslim in China, can come from somewhere else, and they just hide how they occupied that territory, what used to be Uyghurs. And this is kind of fuel the whitewashing and the power in the country because they have the social media.
Every single data point about, either the spread of the disease itself or about vaccines, every bit of uncertainty gets catastrophized. And I think that is a really difficult point that will make this transition quite difficult, and that needs to be taken into account at that point.
No worries. Any other questions? Yes, Ernest?
This is kind of relates to everything that's been said today. A lot of people when I ask them, are you going to let your kid have an iPad when they grow up? I feel like everyone in my generation says, no, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to have a kid, just always scrolling. Do you think these sort of sentiments are going to increase naturally regarding technology as a whole, AI, VR, AR, or do you think it's going to be too little, too late for humanity?
I mean, I don't think it's inevitable that we just get more and more and more and more technology. What I think the biggest risk might be is the kind of dependency on digital tools that we create in some societies, where people find it really difficult to do anything without, because some schools have stopped teaching kids how to have proper handwriting, so that they learn to write and then move on to tablets. So things like joined up writing. And also other analog skills. How many children these days can read an analog watch face? So a big problem is that this kind of dependency on technology that is slowly creeping in. And that will really need some careful thinking about what skills do we need to bring back in order to make it possible to tone down the tech usage. And especially because I think, actually, I feel like it's more often society that forces people into a higher technology adoption rate in this country than necessarily individuals themselves. Like with COVID, like where you saw that so many things completely went digital, like how few shops there are left where you can pay with cash, how schools now expect all of their students to find all their homework on Teams and hand it in online. I mean, in my family, the kids, my stepdaughters had started to use computers during lockdown because of school, and before that they barely used any. And now their schools make them essentially spend more hours on the devices than even I do in my work. I do humanities, I read books. So it's very much who is actually making people use these technologies that makes it difficult to make individual choices about it.
I love the question. Obviously, we spoke about it a little bit earlier, and it's really interesting. Both my daughters are very different. One of them goes to school where there is no technology. They are not given any tablets, any devices. Everything is handwritten, and technology is always banned pretty much in the school. The other one goes to school where it's a complete thing. They will have to have laptops and devices and all these sort of things. And really fascinating. One that has access to devices doesn't want any, so she doesn't want a phone, she doesn't want any of these things, she's quite happy not having one. The other one that doesn't have them.
Was that on purpose?
It's funny. No, they chose their schools, right? They went to go and see them, they both chose their own schools and that sort of thing. But I do think this is a problem. And it goes back to this ease and convenience thing. The number of people I know that when you're doing a long car journey, it's like, oh, just give them the tablet and watch Bluey in the back and let them sort of be quiet, and then they get addicted to these things. And so part of this is recreating the thing with society. How do we make everything else that's not tech exciting? How do we make it exciting to get a book and touch the pages and smell that sort of scent of the paper breaking down, of going outside and enjoying the things that are out there, and making those things more exciting than the tech, so we almost don't talk about the tech. And look, in my world, tech is really useful for lots of things. It improves quality and safety in health services. It allows data transparency that makes better clinical decisions at times. But at the same time, we do have to kind of recalibrate society so that we're not completely dependent on it, and we create a generation that appreciates the things that are not necessarily tech, so they can live and exist without being dependent on it.
Any other questions? Yeah?
If there are none, I might ask. So about the panel about race and technology, I have a question because I also am a lawyer, so I've worked in somehow law and technology kind of integrates. In US, they have been using a system called Compass, which is correctional and abandonment management violence for alternative sanctions. And what it basically does is the US court, especially in California, New York, used it by the judges, and they kind of use that software, risk assessment software, for people who have to be given parole and probation based on their behavior. And what they learned after years and years of using that tool, algorithm Compass, is that not only sometimes governments may use it for racial purposes or surveillance or internet purposes, but sometimes technology can even be racist in itself. So because the data set that it was getting it was trying to flag the people who were people of color into giving probation or parole on longer durations rather than as compared to people who belong to the white, for instance. So my question is that when technology in itself started, because remember there was again research going on that even Twitter, when they created the AI bot, was learning all the bad language that was already present in the Twitter, because that's the data set that is being fed into the AI model. So my question is that how can we prevent technology being racist in itself? Because the argument would be that, oh, there is a human racial bias that we have come in play. We are making it transparent with inductive technology. But the fact is that technology is in itself being racist. So how can we eliminate that?
Well, so in terms of both the Compass algorithm and the chatbot, I would still maintain that it is not about technology being racist, it's technology executing the racism of humans who have created it. The Compass algorithm was trained on data sets based on more than a century of redlining, with humans making the decisions that people of color would commit more crimes than others, and over-policing people, and so finding a self-fulfilling prophecy. And all that data was put into an algorithm, and so what the algorithm did was just calculations based on the outcomes of the racist humans that came before it. And same in terms of, so the chatbot on Twitter that you're referring to, an experiment by Microsoft, a chatbot called Keyn, is a very interesting one because it really shows directly the influence of that data set. Because what happens was, it wasn't just let on Twitter and learn from, I don't know, the tweets from Barack Obama or something. No, it was immediately targeted by people who wanted to mess around with it. So, someone posted on 4chan, or what was it? Hey, Microsoft's got this chatbot, it's supposed to learn from us Twitter users. Let's go throw some really vile stuff at it and see what happens. Well, what happened is then not very unexpected. But so in both cases, it shows that it is still the human data feeding into the technology.
And in that example, we probably wouldn't expect a dissimilar result in the physical world if we were to, target a group of individuals in the same way. They're probably also going to learn a behaviour as a result of that.
A few years ago, I know about the chat box. Like particular, anyone posted on Twitter or on Facebook, family members in exile, someone's parents was sent to the camp, detained, or someone got sentenced, or accused the Chinese government. And immediately comes up exactly some kind of standardized. It took for a while to analyze the data, and then directly comes up chatbot automatically. They just sent from Beijing or Shanghai somewhere. Automatically comes up on Facebook. Exactly some everywhere. Everyone posted at the same day. This is exactly. This is also used. I agree with you. This takes any racial for anything. That's good. The programming there, but this is how they use it to target particular group or individual, or to achieve their own political or economic gain. So it's that's what we've been experiencing in social media. But again, artificial intelligence, that kind of software. And again, we tried it already. Asking if you, someone tried to, based in Shanghai or Beijing, ask about the Tibetan, how the Chinese government treated the Tibetan, and can you tell anything about Uyghur genocide? And they said, I cannot tell about it anymore. But the test result in Shanghai, except some software in China, different than someone using some software in London. Totally different. This is also, they tested the censorship still there. So this is a curious found again how governments are using it for their own end. It could be Elon Musk, any individual could be use it. This is you can see protect the danger.
But I think your example of law is a really interesting one, because I'm seeing more and more technology come into law, whether it happens to be law firms using Gen AI, whether it happens to be law enforcement agencies or justice systems using technology as well. And we see this a little bit with the single justice system in the UK, with what is considered on the one side low-level misdemeanors or things that typically have been dealt with through the magistrates, now going through these systems. And you can see we're only a little bit further away before this becomes completely automated. And we're already seeing some bad decisions, some really bad decisions, where historically a magistrate would have looked at the facts and decided actually this person should not be should not face any form of criminal sanction. But we're seeing automated decisions now where people are ending up with either fines, sentences, convictions through these single justice measures. And I'm sure this is not unique to the UK. And so in law in particular, especially when liberties are at risk, and those liberties extend not just in your own jurisdiction, but then end up affecting you in other jurisdictions, I think this is a kind of worrying scope creep of the way in which technology is ending up being used that perhaps wasn't intended originally.
And post office scandal is one of the
absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that's where you can see that it's again minorities that have historically been targeted are being targeted again, and this is where something called automation bias creeps in as well. So the tendency of people to believe an automated decision more so than the claims, or especially the counterclaims by humans, and especially if they are minoritized people. So that, yeah, basically a woman of color is less likely to be believed than an automated decision-making system that says that this woman should be arrested for something she shouldn't be for.
Have we got any further questions?
Yes, so I was just wondering, what do you think that, in the conversation about technology, AI is kind of dominated sort of predominant prism through which we think about sort of fears and worries. What do you think is kind of the expense of an almost myopic focus on AI? Do you think that there's anything that is kind of missed out by our discussion about technology and the dangers that it has being kind of so viewed through this narrow prism?
Very good question. I mean, I think that it kind of, the overemphasis on AI is shown in the way in which people try to creep it into every single other technology. It's to the point that, now your laundry machine can connect to the internet. Why? Why would I want my laundry machine to do that? And apparently there is some kind of, things go slightly more easily because it can ping your phone when the laundry's done. My flat isn't that big. So this idea that there are that AI should be in everything, that all technology should be interlinked, and that all technology should be AI powered to make them better and to make things easier. That is, I think, a really dangerous issue. Whereas it would be much better if we did a roll back to looking at individual technologies as separate, and roll back from ideas that you need massive computers with touchscreens in cars, which I just think is plain dangerous.
I do worry about this myopic view of AI. And I go back to, where does it come from? And for me, a lot of it comes from what I call the tech bros of Silicon Valley and their investors, who are almost obsessed with it. Ad nauseum. And every startup I've had to sort of evaluate, somewhere the word AI creeps in. I call it AI bingo. I go to these events, these pitches, and I'm counting how many times is AI coming up, and before that was blockchain, and soon it'll be Gen AI and chat, whatever else, something else, LLMs, right? And it's a thing, and I worry that it's almost become this single focus at the moment, to the point where sometimes it's completely irrelevant, but it just creeps its way in, and it becomes part of the narrative, the discussion, the sales pitch of these very many companies. And so I think one thing we need to do is allow people to really test and challenge, is this really AI, or is the word just being thrown in to sell something? And normally sell something is totally irrelevant or pointless and has no use in society. And I'm almost convinced that, bit like the washing machine example, that it's got a use when actually it's not even really solving a problem. It's almost trying to tell people there's a problem that needs solving with AI when it doesn't. And it's more really about selling a product that will help some investor somewhere and some random startup make a lot of money. So I do think that this focus, this tunnel vision around AI is a little bit worrying. We have the same with crypto, we have the same with blockchain, we're probably going to get the same with Gen AI for a while. And we need to think about where this comes from. And a lot of it comes from the very powerful investment houses that invest in a lot of these tech providers, these startups, and there's kind of an almost, they've got a single focus on how they go about making money from people being convinced by this, and it is a marketing spin. So we need to really help people understand, how do we separate out marketing spin, myth from reality, and is there a problem that really needs solving through AI or not? And that requires people to be critical thinkers, and be able to really differentiate for themselves what is good stuff and what is really just droll.
I have different opinion about AI technology. I still regard it's very primitive because I tested on the GPT, and many data. For example, when we talk about popular technology, you only think about English language. You never think about any other languages. That is IA collect only available data from the World Wide Web or at the social media, collect that one by store the data, and building up all the system, all the big the machines and the memory, right? And they store the kind of start from Silicon Valley, the fantasy about the future. Still, that's based on what you have written so far. So I checked many particular data and like individuals before the Uyghurs, prominent Uyghurs, before they are taken out, separate, or stop their work. I got two that kind of example. Said this data was collected before 2017. There's no data available before 2017. Why not available? Because you cannot collect the data. This is only you go now, and no one put on the website. You cannot collect it. So this kind of mostly dominated on the kind of English language or core language we call French, Russian, English, and Chinese. And what about this? We are more than there's more than 2,000 or 200,000. I don't know exactly the language spoken in the world, and one represents more on the IA on technology. The others are left out. And this is the kind of, again, if this technology developed in the past era, there will be lots of disadvantages will be created. Again, this is one of the most disadvantages about technology, including social media, everything fasten about globalization and kill out many different diversity in the world, on the humanity. That was again what we are worrying about. Because the young generation, again, we talk about, I made example of Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. They don't create anything. They all use Russian app. Everything in Russian. And in China, so everything in Chinese language. They very easily forget their own language, their own culture. And that was the technology clearly killing this heritage, this rich culture. That's what we, at the end, what humanity we earned. We're creating this technology, we are killing ourselves. Slowly we are killing ourselves. If I'm not wrong, that's what I understand. So I'm doing, again, artificial technology is an early stage, again, the conclusion, that only collect what we have left on the World Wide Web and collect the data. There's nothing new, every adding up. And some of the non-core core language just left out because no one cares about it.
Great. Thank you so much for everything from the panelists. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. And yeah, big thank you again from me.